Welcome ladies and gentlemen, today we are going to take a look at the Sorcerer heal for Dragon Bones DLC. This is a dungeon build. I do have a written guide on my website if you want to go check it out. I list up additional sets there because this is just one of the many possibilities in terms of gear setup that a healer can run. When we check out our stats, very good stats, a lot of health, Magicka recovery. What do we need? We also have quite a lot of resistances actually, once fully buffed, and when I want to proc spell power cure, we even have a lot of spell damage. We are using the Atronach Mundustone to get more Magicka recovery. In terms of buff food, you want Witch Mother's Potent Brew because it just increases your max stats, health and Magicka a lot, and it gives you a lot of Magicka recovery, which is nice. For the more difficult dungeons, I do recommend running the spell power pots because they give you extra crit, spell damage and Magicka. That's very helpful. For easier dungeons, if you only want to run the normal potions, make sure to slot a skill like Power Surge to have the spell damage buff. Now in terms of race, I do recommend being a high elf, Argonian or Breton, all those three works. I personally prefer a high elf because you get 10% more max Magicka and 9% more Magicka recovery. The more max Magicka you have and spell damage both increases your healing output, so both stats are very important. Now in terms of gear setup, like I said, I do have a ton of setups on my website, and please also make sure to not forget to subscribe, more videos will follow. Here is kind of the standard setup that most healers use, or at least have at their disposal. The first set is always Spell Power Cure. This is simply the best set because it buffs up to 6 players. I think the cap is at 6 players with 258 weapon and spell damage, and it procs very easily, so this increases the overall group damage by a lot. It also increases your heals actually because the spell damage, the weapon damage buff will also go on you, and it lasts for 10 seconds. It doesn't have any cooldown because you basically can reapply it once it runs out. Then the second set we are running is Worm Cult. Now this is only necessary if you have Magicka users in your group, because as you can see, the 5-piece bonus reduces the cost of your Magicka abilities by 4% for your group. Now if you have stamina DDs in your group, this set is not that good, but you could for example run Your Wolves or Mending or a lot of other sets that I list on my site. In terms of traits, I have in terms of enchants, I run 1 spell damage and 2 cost reduction, which kinda gave the better sustain. However, if you want, you also can run recovery. The difference is really small. In the end, you need to decide where the sweet spot for sustain is. If you feel like you're having too much sustain, you could add another spell damage glyph to increase your healing output. In terms of traits, I have infused on the big pieces with Tri-Stat enchantments, and on the small pieces Divine with Magicka enchantment. Then the Master healing stuff is simply still the best stuff you actually can run as a healer, because as you see, the initial heal of Grand Healing restores 258 stamina to your group members, and this is both helpful for stamina and Magicka setups because both need stamina to either deal damage or block and whatsoever, so it's a very good thing. I do have an Absorb Magic enchant here just to get a little bit more sustain with a powered trait. Back bar, I do have a Maelstrom lightning stuff. Now you don't necessarily need a Maelstrom stuff, this is just the icing on top. You can run a random stuff if you want. The most important thing that you need to remember is that you run a lightning stuff with a shock enchantment and a charge trait. That's the important thing. I will explain that in a second when we get to the blockade of shock. That's the gear setup. You can play around with this if you feel like you have a little bit too much health, because Zorks have really nice passive, so when a pet is active you get more health. When we look at it, when I remove it, we have 17k health, and with the pet it goes up to 18.3. So in the end you need to know when you're comfortable with how much health you have. 23 here, 18 here. Those two are not that important. The two that you need to look out for is 76 in Blessed and 73 in Elfborn. This increases your overall healing, and this increases your like critical strikes, healing strikes. Very nice. 44 Shadow Ward, 76 Tenacity, 76 Arcanist. They really help with sustain. Tenacity is nice because restoration staves already have 30% increased heavy attack, resource return, add another 14 on top of that, so very good. 44 Warlord, 49, 49, 48, 13, 81. Basically more or less the same setup I use on most of my healer builds. But you can play around with this. I do recommend though you put at least 66 points into Ironclad, because a lot of damage that you get is direct damage attacks. Just quickly want to go through the most important passives. Unholy Knowledge, both reduces your magic and stamina cost, very nice. Then this one is also a very important thing. So as you can see, casting a dark magic ability grants minor prophecy to you and your group, increasing your spell critical by 657. Currently I don't have any of those skills slotted, but I will get to that in a second. If you have Magicka setups in your group and you don't have any other Zork with you in the group, then I definitely recommend slotting Restraining Prison. I will get to that in a second. Just so we actually benefit from this and everybody has a higher spell crit rating. Then Power Stone, a lot of ultimate cost reduction. Our main ultimate, Aggressive Warhorn, usually costs 250 ultimates. Now with this Power Stone passive, it only costs 213, so it's really nice. And the Expert Summoner increases your max health. That's why we have more health than other setups. Here we get Capacitor, more Magicka Recovery, then some damage related passives that are nice to have but not that important as a healer. Other than that, you need the Restoration Stuff passives, the Destruction Stuff and the Restoration Stuff passives, Light Armor. At the moment we have 7 light. Now if you chose to run another set like Kagrenak, which is craftable, you could use a heavy chest piece to give you more overall resistances. And then you also want to put some points into Juggernaut to increase your health even more. Plus, Undaunted, very important, the passives, Undaunted Metal. Now, because we have 7 light, we only get 2% more. If you can run a 5 light, 1 heavy, 1 medium setup, you could get 6%, which is really nice. Other than that, Mage's Guild, Fighter's Guild, your racial passives and medicinal use in the alchemy section. This increases your potion duration, that is very important. Now, in terms of skills, keep in mind there's a huge variety of good skills that you can use. This is just one setup that I prefer, and I will quickly explain why I chose this, and I will also show you a few other options that you have available. Healing Ward, this is basically my first skill. A lot of people probably think you don't really need that because you have another really strong heal, that's the pet. Now in my opinion I still like it, because if somebody drops low on health and you apply the Healing Ward to him, he just gets a huge shield, because you can see the shield strength increases by up to 300% depending on the severity of the target's wounds. So the shield can get really huge. Now if somebody has a huge shield on him, you actually have more time to heal him back up till the shield expires. That's why I really like this kind of ability. Combat Prayer. This is a very important one because it applies a minor berserk to your friendlies. Increase the damage done by 8%. So it's conal, so you really need to aim that it actually hits. And it also heals for quite a lot. Healing Springs, your main AoE heal. If you know your group stands in this circle, it's really easy to heal with this ability. Plus, you get the Magicka back for up to 3 group members that you actually hit in the heals. Inner Light. Now, when we look at my Magicka bar now, we are at like 35k with my resources, and when I apply Inner Light, it goes up to 37, so you gain like 2k Magicka. This increases all our heals basically, for the pet and the other heals. Now, like I said, this is kind of a flex spot. If you don't want to run spell power pots, definitely make sure to slot this because you get the prophecy buff, increasing your spell crit. I will explain what else you could slot here in a second. The Twilight Matriarch. Now this is a very strong heal, kinda even stronger than actually the Breath of Life, as long as your pet is alive, obviously. It heals up to 2 other friendly targets. And the nice thing about this heal is, like with the healing ward, you don't need to know where your friendly group member stands. So if he's behind you and you don't exactly know, you can just use this and he will still get healed, because there is no restriction as long as he is in a 28 meters radius within you. This needs to be double slotted, very important. Lights Champion. This is only like a oh crap button. Don't try to not use this if possible. If somebody drops really low, you could use this, or when there is a lot of incoming damage, you could use this. But otherwise, always make sure to use Aggressive Warhorn, because as you can see, it increases your max Magicka, stamina and health by 10% for 30 seconds, and it also gives Major Force for 9.5 seconds, increasing the critical damage done by 15%. That's pretty cool. Especially, like, everybody will do more damage and everybody will also have more health. So that's a really cool ability, like ultimate. And people will probably die less because they have more health, so that's really nice. Boundless Storm. Now this ability, there's a few things to mention. Gives us Major Resolve and Ward, increasing physical and spell resistance by 5.3k, so that's quite a lot. It also gives a speed buff, so we are actually quite fast running around. Other than that, same with the Blockade of Storms and the Shock enchant that we have here, it can apply Concussion. What does Concussion do? You have a very small chance to apply it, and when it's applied to the target, the enemy will take 8% more damage. So it's a pretty cool ability. Same with Blockade of Storms. First off, it deals quite a lot of damage as the Boundless Storm, and more, but both deal damage. And then, as you can see, like, enemies in the target area every 1 second, and setting concussed enemies off balance for 5 seconds. So when an enemy is already concussed and Blockade of the Storms is present, off balanced will be applied. What does off balance do? It increases your damage by 10%. If you have enough points in the Exploiter CP perk. Now keep in mind, with Dragon Bones, bosses will only be able to set off balance for 5 seconds every 15 to 20 seconds, if I remember correctly. Trash Pack can still be set off balance all the time. If you heavy attack on an off balanced enemy, you will get twice the resources. So bosses cannot be knocked down, but they only, like, the off balance only lasts for 5 seconds, and like mobs that are not classified as bosses or like strong mobs, they can be knocked down after a heavy attack. The off balance is gone. So when you look at this, because I'm running a charge trait, Shock and concussion basically immediately applies. Almost basically has a 100% chance to instantly apply. So you see, let me just kill the pack quickly. Now I drop this, bam, off balanced. That means concussion and off balance both applied within a second. So with a shock staff, charge trait, and a shock enchant, it's so easy to proc this. Then elemental drain. This needs to be on a lot of enemies and especially the bosses all the time. First off, it debuffs them, but more importantly, it applies minor Magicka steal, increasing everyone's Magicka recovery. Because we have Blockade of Storm and Boundless Storm on, we also hit the enemy, so we also gain like more sustain from that. Energy Orb. Biggest mistake most healers actually make in dungeons, they don't use this ability. If you have damage dealers or any other players, tanks, this will help a lot with sustain, because you see when somebody uses the synergy, then they get 4k Magicka or stamina back. That's just a huge like sustain increase. So make sure to shoot this every like 15 to 20 seconds, like 2-3 balls, so people have the possibility to actually use them. I already explained the horn. Now in terms of other skills that you could use, like I said, if you don't want healing ward, okay, no problem. You don't want inner light, no problem. You can replace those skills. Restraining prison is a really nice skill. As you can see, affected enemies remain slowed for 6 seconds after the effect ends, so they're snared for a long duration. And while the ability is present on the ground, the enemies are immobilized. So they cannot run around, they cannot attack anyone. So your damage dealers, or even your tank, can just go out of range, and most mobs will just stand there doing nothing. That's another very effective tool. Another option, Empowered Ward. It also shields your Matriarch, so your pet will die less. You kinda need to figure out in which fights your pet dies a lot and which not, so you know when to use the shield ability. And as you can see, you also get a huge shield. Another good thing about this is that it grants minor intellect to your group members, increasing their Magicka recovery by 10%. Like I said, this is only like useful if you have Magicka setups in your group. That's more or less it. What you also could obviously run, Power Surge, like I said. It's nice because it gives you the spell damage buff in case you only want to run normal potions. You could run Liquid Lightning. Give me a sec when I morph it. Liquid Lightning. It's another damage ability. It also has the chance to apply concussion, deals a lot of damage, and it provides the conduit synergy, so you would have another synergy to use. Not you, but like your group members. That would be another possibility. I always say, adjust the builds to your needs. I do hope you understood the idea behind the build. And now you kind of can play around, experiment around a little bit, and kind of find out what suits you best. If you don't like the Lights Champion, you also could, for example, use the Absorption Field. It heals your group members, it silences all mobs in there, it stuns them. It's another good ultimate. But like I say, try to use Horn. The stats buff is just really nice overall. But that's it. If you have any questions, ask me in the comment section below. Please make sure to not forget to subscribe. Thank you for watching and have a nice day. Cheers.